Thank you for joining us. Another music and psychology series. This song was recorded with a band I played with about 17 years ago called Reggae Culture. My dad and I co-wrote a couple songs together, and this is one of them, and it's called 11th Commandment. This is Dave, my old man. I've been starting to use my middle name also. So, Patrick David and
David Kenneth.
explain the story we're talking about there from the Bible?
Well, I guess we could probably call it the concept of the first censorship, perhaps, is what if there had been another commandment that would keep the priests, the people in charge, from abusing God, I guess, to say that God is on our side, and so we can go do anything, we can break any of these commandments because we say so. So if there had been like an 11th commandment, perhaps, rather than thou shalt not kill in the name of thy God, perhaps it would have been thou shalt not break these commandments in the name of thy God. And I don't know what the world would have looked like today if that had been in place.
Let that damn dog in.
Hello, doggy.
Yo, the like, thou shalt not kill in the name of God. Well, they always can make it. You can always make other people, right? Anybody that's not. That's part of like the orthodoxy, is that they like have all these strict things, and if people don't follow their strict code, then they're othered, right? Which and then they can kill the others because they're challenging their vision of what the future could be, I think that was. I even think there could have been a 12th commandment, and yeah. Let's continue to see.
Yeah, who knows?
Is it ready? Sit. Sit.
Politicians writing and twisted up these laws. Took hold of the power and murdered in the name of God. The people believe every word that they say. One glaring ambition empowers them to this day. Thou shalt not kill in the name of thy God. This 11th commandment was stricken from the start. These atrocities have been committed in God's name, and some actually believe that they are not to blame.
So like you're saying, the idea is like we don't have the knowledge, we look to the bishops and priests, right? And if they literally did take parts out. So if we're not talking about this directly, we have to know that they took out parts of the Bible, like the Gnostic Gospels and the Book of Enoch and things like that. You know, so like they've done this, and to make it so people don't open their eyes to that God that's inside, you know, and like this is a very Gnostic thing because it's like good versus evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that right? Come here. And I, you know, the fact that that everything now we look at what's going on and how like the Pope has like other priests outside calling him a heretic on because they're changing their tune and changing how they're passing down because they need to, because everyone's waking up and there's no choice now. So they're broadening their understanding, so they're not becoming that, like they can't be Orthodox and follow us completely anymore. Like you see all these like I'm following a few kind of Orthodox and Catholic priests online, and they're like starting to talk about the stuff they didn't want to talk about years ago, that they were literally calling Gnostics the original heretics a year ago, and now like these same priests are like having to talk about it, and not only talk about it but be fair about their analysis, because otherwise they're confronted with the fact that they've been, you know, they're awakening with everybody else, it seems. So it's like we're coming to that time of unity, it seems to me, and you know, but back then I think we were pretty. It just shows where our souls were. Like, we're living in Alberta, you're working in the oil field, and I just got back from New Zealand, and we're like, look at this bullshit that's going around. We're like, you were a part of it as I was, and like, you know what I mean? And they're like, but our hearts were saying this message, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, I don't know.
Well, that's right. Well, yeah, you see, there is more change coming. I'm kind of optimistic about it because of things like mass media, which can be really bad. But you've got the Catholic Church coming around now saying that, okay, they've been called on so much over so many decades now that they might as well just throw up their hands and open up the doors and say, look, okay, we give up, come in, we're going to fix this as best we can, come and look at this shit, come and see the knowledge we have. You know, someday I'm hoping they'll let journalists into like the Vatican archives so they know exactly what's going on. Maybe the Pope himself probably needs to be fully educated as to what really has gone on in the past. So you talk about a complete religion that has run governments across the world, and that they basically were the force behind colonization and everything that came with it. They were always, whatever government was coming over to colonize a new land, they always had the Catholic Church or the Church of England or some major power behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I don't know enough about Eastern culture, but I don't think any armies conquered anybody in the name of Buddha. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a strange construct of the civilization.
Well, I think, like, I guess the next part that we'll go through is pretty much all the atrocities that haven't really been hidden. Like, it's almost like, well, first of all, I want to say straight off the bat, I don't want to demonize, like, Catholicism or even, like, Orthodoxy in a full way, too, as I believe there's times we need to follow. And there's times we need to be the shepherd, and there's times we need to be the sheep, in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Gnosticism is when you're the shepherd, and you're and on the far end, and I think that you can be only sheep if you're on the far end of Orthodoxy. But there is times we need to follow. We need to know that people have competence, and times that we need to follow, and times when we need to lead. But the other thing is when we learn about just Catholicism, it's like the story of the elephant. You know, there's four monks touching the different parts of the elephant, and there's one monk that's blind, and he's sitting to the side. one's on the leg, and he's like, an elephant is like a tree. Gandhi, come here. Tell me what an elephant's like. And then the other one's like on the side of the elephant, right? And he's like, no, an elephant is like a wall. And then the other one's just on the tail. He's like, no, an elephant's like a rope. And then another one, so they're all blind, by the way. And then the other one's on the ear, and he's like, no, it's not like any of those things. It's like a flag or like a leaf or like a big leaf, right? And they're like, but then there's one on the side, and he hasn't touched any, and he's blind also. And he's like, no, you guys are all wrong. It's like you guys have all only just touched one part of it, and you're making judgments as if this is the whole, right? And now Catholicism, which is maybe just the leg, right? And Islam's like, the ear, and Buddhism's the tail, and the idea is we need to come to a time where they accept these other things rather than calling them heretics and witch hunting them.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the next verse. Whiny dog. So there's centuries of hate, holy wars, inquisition, crusades, witch hunts, jihad, terrorism, popes, kings, presidents, and politicians using these tools to strengthen their position. All a reason enough for abolition. People stand up, will bring down the system. Our minds must open to our hearts and must listen, not allow these lies to make our decision. Well, there's a bit to unpack there, but you want to start with any of that?
Well, yeah, it's like I say, it's the fact that the religion was behind the power structure.
Mm-hmm. Like it was the government.
It was literally the government. No king did anything unless it was approved by the church.
Mm.
And if he went against it, then he was
Kind of like
demonized. There was a lot of that went back in the old days in the kingdoms and so forth. The king could not act without the religious.
It's kind of like the government
Yeah.
with Facebook.
Well,
Because they can't do anything because Facebook runs the algorithms. Everyone gets everything on
Yeah.
Facebook, so the government, they work hand in hand. Right?
Anyway, yeah.
Well, anyways, it's just a funny joke to the.
Yeah.
So there's centuries of hate, holy wars, and inquisitions. Like they always use, if they can't use ways to divide us with like ideology, like they do with what they're doing right now. They did it with religion, right? So that they could go to get us to do their dirty work. We're just pawns in a scheme. We don't actually know why they're getting us to do it, but and
Well, yeah, and what they did is back in the Crusades, what they did was religious outrage. After hundreds of years of the English and the Spanish and the French and the Germans and all those nations fighting each other and killing each other, they all decided once the Muslims took Jerusalem, they decided that was an affront to Christianity, so they all united under the cross and attacked the common enemy, right? And so what they did is they demonized the other religion, not knowing anything about it. Let's just go do it. Let's just demonize them. Let's kill them all. And that's what the Crusades were.
even though they all come from Abrahamic traditions.
Yeah, exactly. None of that seemed to matter when it comes to religious control, right?
So the century they hate holy wars, inquisitions. The Inquisitions, like that was when they went around like these mushroom cults, they called them, right? And like there's all. So what was the Inquisition about?
Well, the Inquisition was basically they started calling people
Spanish.
like Galileo heretics because they would go against the religious order that would put the Earth at the center of the universe, and everything revolved around it. That was one of the arguments with Galileo and many of these others. Is their science dared to contradict the religious order of the time, so they were called heretics. They were imprisoned, they were murdered, they were tortured, they were told to recant. Galileo, I believe he was a friend of the popes or something, so he got the easy end of it. But that is, and then that's where the legendary rise of the Illuminati came from, was the secret society of the science, the illuminated, that needed to hide from the forces of religion. And then there was a war to eliminate the Illuminati, right? There was all that, plus the Knights Templar were also hunted down and demonized, and it was all because of religious order, whoever was speaking at the time, whether it was the Pope or the Archbishop or whoever was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So.
And a lot of things that I'm just starting to see come out, and I might be a little bit wrong here, but during that time there was a lot of people like expanding their consciousness, like it was a lot to do with some like mushroom cults too and stuff, and people coming back in from this is stuff that I guess it's hard to know if it's true history because it's kind of new history that's being put in because they didn't really want. That's the interesting thing about like the story of the apple and Adam and Eve is they're telling the opposite story of the Gnostic story. Like the Gnostic story says, I'm the benevolent snake with the apple, and this apple is going to teach you what's good and what's evil, and that'll help you fight the evil, right?
Yeah.
Which is this flipped on its head from the story that we all know. It says, oh no, if you take that, we become conscious, and then that's what would happen to us. Do you want to be any more conscious than that? Right? Like.
Well, yeah, and then of course it's being labeled as original sin. That is the original sin. Plus, there's also, as every child came into the world, according to the religion that I came from, which was Lutheran, if a child cried, he sinned. So a baby, as soon as they smacked it on its bottom and got it to cry, it sinned. Mm-hmm. So it was immediately a sinner. And of course, this was the same group that told me, the same pastor that told me that God put prehistoric.
Oh, that's Ruby dreaming. She was having a.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, you're a good guard dog. So yeah, Ruby was having a dream and she was going whoop 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 whoop, and then
dogs aren't crazy.
Gandhi thinks there's a dog outside, so he's off chasing. Anyway, so the Crusades. Did you talk about that already?
Yeah.
And then, so the witch hunts. They like. All these women started. There was a big separation in the sexes, which we've seen in our time, and as we know, there is things that show that women seem to be more connected to their intuitive side, which is their right brain, right, and that's the feminine side of the brain. So there was a time when there was a big separation from the masculine, so a lot of the women turned to the spirit, and they became very intuitively intelligent, and that became a threat to the men and the church too, because the church was all based on these kind of things. That's why the Gospel of Mary Magdalene was also taken out, right? Because that empowered the women, right? There's a lot of what happened then is they started killing women and burning them and being like, she's a witch, she knows all this shit, where did she get this knowledge from? She went and listened to the trees instead of listening to their egos like all the men were at that time, right? I'm not saying all the men, I'm just generalizing, but we have to know that that's what happens when we have divisive nature to our politics and to our situation. We have a church that's putting men above women and such, then you're gonna have these pushbacks. So what happened? Well, they killed off so many there was barely any women left in some places, right? So that, and they continue, the witch hunt continues to this day. Like Louis Riel was, because he became very intuitively intelligent out of nowhere, which they call it a Kundalini awakening, and it become confusing for some people, and he became very in touch with the archetypal stories of the Bible, and they knew he was trouble because he was in part of the parliament. He was a real moral man that had power and strength, and they couldn't just disappear. So they witch hunted him, put him in the insane asylum for 2 years, right? And so the witch hunt is different now. They can't just burn people at the stake. Like, they just have enough people around somebody that can call them crazy, and then they lock them away, and then they don't have to deal with them, right? My grandfather witch hunted my grandmother in the 50s, when Grandpa called her into the insane asylum.
Oh, in the 60s.
In the 60s. So so she was driving him crazy. So he was going crazy, and so he called her crazy. See how that game works? And sent her to the insane asylum. But she was just being a strong woman. That's not allowed. What? No. You go to the insane asylum. But guess what happened in karma to that, too, is he got his masculinity taken away after the 70s and the hippie movement, and then the pendulum swings, right? So he became a whipped man, too, and so he was witch hunted for his masculinity. So witch hunts, crusades, witch hunts, jihad.
Yeah, it's all, like I say, it's all about religion and what the belief and who the
extremism,
who the main character is, and who's got the biggest mouth and who can sway the most people. Right? Whether it's a leader of a cult or whether it's a leader of a massive political organization or a church. And the idea of the Pope having such power with words. So when he comes out and he makes these statements, they're literally a holy statement in a way. Like,
like this came from
on
God.
the Islam side, I think it's called a fatwa, which is like a holy statement saying this is going to happen or this must happen. I don't quote me on that, but basically it's he is making a statement saying this is the position of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
I, as the head of the Catholic Church, do state so.
How easy corruptible.
Well,
You know
the
what I
funny
mean?
thing
Like,
is
just
he
give
is
somebody absolute
leaning.
power, right?
Well, yeah, but that's the way it's been for years. You can go back to all the popes or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you've got like what I've been hearing out of him lately, he is. Here's another very interesting thing: is he is the first South American pope ever. Everything else has been from the Eastern, like the European areas and so forth. This is the first time anybody from this side of the pond, South
that's
America.
Just identity politics.
But anyway, whatever. This is something that is there, and it's.
Anyways.
But when he makes a statement about loving and supporting your gay children and stuff like this, I mean, this is a big thing for the Catholic Church.
They're at the point now where they can't play their little bullshit games anymore.
No, there's no more of that.
It's awesome to see them grovel at the feet of a new world, but they don't get to be judged well still for what he's doing it now because he has to, because he's seeing how the world is unraveling. I don't see this as a virtuous awakening that they all of a sudden it's
getting to the point where it's no different than the policy changed in the past, the idea of allowing women to be ordained as priests. That was a big thing. Don't know when that happened.
Yeah.
But when they start doing that, you get a whole bunch of the like you say the extreme side of it. They all go, oh no, that's bad. We can't have that, and they all walk away. But the fact of the matter is when they do announce and they do that and they follow through and they allow women to be ordained as priests, it's a big step. It's things like that they realize now. I mean, this is the 21st century, and you got to change with the freaking times.
Well, we're in the earth and truth and reconciliation, right? We're at a time like that, right? And that's for every situation. What the churches have done to everybody, right? It's not just for any race in general. We're talking about, and what that means too is they can start saying all their virtuous things, this virtue signal, as if they're changing, but there needs to be a statement of apology. No, Gandhi, what is your issue today, buddy? You are just not.
There's a little bear out there.
No, there might be actually. There is a bear in Weimar. Okay, so
So I don't know. You going to restart that, get that going again, or is that?
No, that's good. We're finished. The song
Pretty much done.
there. There needs to be for us to move past this is we do not forgive and forget. We forgive when they acknowledge what scars they've
And there's a lot of that in the lineup right now.
That's what I'm saying, and that in general, so we can forgive them, and I don't know how we can like repay people. That's something that's out of my pay grade, but as far as like this goes too for what just happened to the world and like what the world was, most of the world was duped into. We have to know we can't just forgive and forget. We need to forgive and remember, which means we need to talk about what just happened. And so that we can all like come back to the center again, because I'm seeing a lot of people turning towards cognitive dissonance so heavily because of what they were duped into, that they can't even look a person in the eye that was said, hey guys, like, don't get the vaccine, right? So now they can't even look a person in the eye then, because they're not willing to admit the thing. So we have to like to move past it's forgive and remember, which means all of us need to forgive each other, but we also need to talk about what we went through.
Of course.
Yeah.
Maybe on that note, I should hit the road because it's still snowing out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't have my snow tires on anymore.
He's ahead of schedule now. He's all retired.
Ahead of the curve. Jeez.
Now he's retired, so he's just getting all shit done. And anyways, that was a little podcast about religion. And,
cool.
Yeah.
Never broadcast this.
I'm putting it up.
Don't
I'm putting it up
put it on
right
YouTube.
now.
No.
Yeah, you already gave me permission.
No, I did not.
This is jokes, but
Retract.
But anyways,
I'm a robot.
much love, and have a lovely day.